Advantages of a rent to own. Just like it had advantages, right? It equally has some disadvantages to the buyer. So what are some of the disadvantages a buyer could face or could have when they decide to go or get into a rent to own option of becoming a homeowner? So the first thing, or the number one, could be non-refundable option fees. Option fees are actually upfront fees that are paid by the tenant or the future buyer to the landlord or the future seller. And these options fee are non-refundable if the buyer decides not to purchase the property. Keep in mind, these options fees could be 1% up to 5% of the actual price you guys agree upon. Even though you're not going to actually pay a down payment at that time, which sometimes traditionally we think a conventional, which it has up to 20% down payment, might seem outrageous, it doesn't still mean you're going to walk away without paying any fee at all, okay? So if you're going to do a rent to own, do not think it's money free, alright? Or people say zero down payment. This actually has a fee attached to it, and it can range from anywhere between 1% to 5%. So remember this before you go in to get that, alright? And however, if you decide at the end of whatever the period was that you guys agreed upon that I'm no longer going to buy, then there's a probability that you're not going to get your money back. Does this sound right? Are you willing to just walk away from a property and not get it and not even get your money back? So think twice before you get into these different options, okay? The second disadvantage is going to be a higher monthly payment. If you are renting a house, of course you're going to pay rent. If you have a mortgage, you're equally going to be paying for that mortgage. It's almost like rent, right? It's just that you're paying to the bank and you're one day going to become the owner, but when you pay a rent, you're never going to become the owner of that property. However, when you go into a rent to own option of becoming a homeowner, you actually end up paying higher monthly payment. And this is because some of your monthly premiums or monthly payments or rent is typically some of it is put towards your rent credit or rental premium, or is put towards you becoming a homeowner, right? So they use some of that rent to actually put as a down payment towards you becoming a homeowner. So at the end of the day, you can use that as your down payment money, and then maybe, I don't know if it's going to be enough, or even if it's not, at least you have some money saved somewhere that you can actually use. But mind you, if you decide you're not going to purchase a house, that extra payment you're making is not going to be given back to you. So there is no guarantee that you're going to get those funds back at the end of the day if you decide, I no longer want to purchase this house because maybe it doesn't suit my taste, or I do not have the funds to actually buy this house at the moment. The number 3 disadvantage is going to be the obligation to buy, right? So once you get into this agreement, that means it's legal, it's binding you, the tenant and the landlord, that at the end of this number of years, I am obligated, I signed that I'm willing to buy this house. So you know that you're obligated to buy this house. So if the buyer's circumstances change, and they may still be obligated to purchase this house, okay? Because now you've made the seller know that at the end of 3 years, or at the end of the year, or 2 years, I will pay for this house. So the seller doesn't have to worry about looking for another buyer to actually buy their house. Because I guess by the time they were actually going into that contract with you, they were thinking of actually selling this house, correct? So yeah, they still, however, want their money. So if you decide you don't want to, but however, the seller doesn't deem or see it that way, or see it towards your direction and say, hey, we went into contract and the contract stated clearly that you are going to purchase this house. You are still obligated to make purchases at the end of that period. Oh, risks losing the option fee and the rental premiums are just talked about. So know that you're legally bound, okay? Before you decide I no longer want to buy it, you might have serious consequences if you decide to opt out of this rent-to-own stuff. And the last one we're going to be talking about is market fluctuation. Keep in mind, it's not every time that the value of the house goes up. There are some times that the value of the house goes down depending on the market situation at that time. So let's say you go into contract. By the time you're going into contract, the value of the house was going up and everything looks great, looks promising, right? You're going to earn some equity, however. But 2 years or 3 years into that contract, you find out that the market is not going up. However, there's a decline in the market. So let's take, for example, you signed a contract for 300, but by the time you're into buying it, the market value at that time is less than 300. Are you still going to pay that 300? Yes, you will have to pay that 300 because that is the agreed upon price you, the seller, or the landlord at that time, and the tenant or the to-be buyer actually agreed upon. So not all the time that you're going to have an increase in the value, right? You could still have a decrease. However, weigh those options. I mean, we might not be good at predicting what the value of the house might be in the next few years, but if you decide to get into that kind of contract, you should be ready for anything that comes out of it, all consequences. Because at that time, if the seller had sold their house, they would have made that amount that they actually gave you in. Keep in mind, at that time, the seller is going to lose if the market value increases, because of course that's going to stick to that 300. Let's say the market value at that current time that you are actually going to buy 3 years into it might be 100,000 on top, or over 300. That's supposed to be 400. Yet she's not going to make that extra 100 because she agreed to sell the property to you at 300. But if the value at that time, you are gaining, you are at an advantage, right? But let's say the market fluctuates and it decreases below 300. Do you think the seller at that time will want to walk away, go get a lesser price? No, they will be willing to actually gain from whatever is happening in the market at that time. So when you're going into this, know that somebody will have to gain and another person will have to lose, because you're not buying the house at the exact moment, you're buying it at a later date, and anything can happen between months, between years. Okay, so keep that in mind before you ever go into such contracts. And that brings us to the end of this video. So please make sure you do your own due diligence and do your research. Check about the advantages and check about the disadvantages, what you're going to lose and what you're going to gain in this process. And keep in mind, this is only for educational purposes. Ask questions to the right people and make your decisions at that moment. Okay, so Make sure you do like, subscribe, share, and turn on your notification bells. Leave your comments if you want me to talk about something in particular, and I will make sure I do research on it and get back to you on that. Please stay safe and healthy out there. Until next time, I'll see you.